Hello everyone, good day to you. Today we are going to start another topic in nursing leadership and management module. So this is mainly focusing on managing outcome utilization and organizational performance improvement model. So this is basically we are talking about the quality management activities and quality management tools in this module. So what are the learning objectives? So upon completion of this, you should be able to articulate major principles of performance improvement activities, which are customer identification, need for participation at all levels, focusing on improving the processes, not criticizing individual performances, and also describe how performance improvement affects the patient and organization, and identify how data is utilized for PIs, for example time series data, Pareto charts, etc., and describe the differences in risk management and PI. Describe how the principles of PI and operationalized in the organization. So these performance improvements, what is the history of quality assurance? Let us start from that point. So quality assurance is, I know for most of you all, it's not a new thing, but it has emerged into the healthcare sector in 1950. So how it has emerged? As an inspection approach to ensure that minimum standards of care existed in healthcare institutions, right? So with that emphasizing on doing it right, some thought the quality assurance was very punitive. Even in your hospitals, I know when you see this quality assurance department person is coming to your ward, you always think they are coming to find a fault, isn't it? So QA is something that people has in their mind is that they are coming to punish you, and they did little to sustain change or proactively identify problem before they occur. So the basic idea was that, but quality assurance is not that actually. If you see, there is a concept called total quality management. So that begins in, especially into manufacturing industry, where W. Edwards Deming and Joseph Juran, they are the pioneers. They have actually consulted with Japanese corporation in 1950s, and they are the one who has actually come up with this TQM module, or else we call it total quality management module. The end result of this method was to satisfy customers rather than just doing it right. So most of the time what happened, now let's say for example you guys are giving a medicine, IV injection, right? So doing it right means you know how to do your 10 rides, and then do your 3 checks, and using your aseptic methods you know how to give your injection. That is the correct way to do it, doing it right, isn't it? But then again, will that satisfy your customer? If you, even though you do it 100% correct according to the procedure, will it satisfy your customer? That is the question. So if you want to satisfy your customer, what you need to do is you need to kind of do what? You need to kind of talk to them, and you have to show your empathy. Then you have to give it slowly, and after that also you need to observe for a while and talk to the customer and see whether he or she is having any pain, something like that, to go extra mile with whatever you are doing, and make them happy, make them satisfied with whatever the procedure that you are doing. So that is the difference between doing something right and satisfying the customer. So this total quality management has been integrated into health sector in 1980s. This is just history. You don't need to memorize. And what are the general principles in performance improvements? So what are the things which is coming under performance improvements? First one is recognize customers and their needs. So first of all, what you need to do is you need to identify your customers. Who are they? What are their needs? What are their requirements? This you need to know. Involve all organization members in the process. You can't be discriminate your janitor or your attendant or your junior nursing officers in this process. So total quality management address everybody. So you need to get all the members in your group into the picture, and work towards to achieve the customer satisfaction. Then make decisions supported by data. So you always go with data. You can't just hypothetically speak on these terms. You need to ensure that you have data to support your decisions. And also you need to continuously do things better. You need to continuously try to make things improve, make things better. Then only you will be able to achieve your targets. Who are the customers in healthcare? Now you might ask, okay, customers are in the not in the hospitals. We have only patients. No, patients also we call them customers. Why? A customer is anyone who receives the output of your effort. So what is our output? We are trying to cure them. So that is our output. So they can be internal. So in your hospital, we call them your staff, right? Who are the internal customers? Your staff. Your starting from your chief matron, your subordinate nursing officers, your accountants, to whatnot. Whoever the person who has been employed in your organization, we call them internal staff. And external staff or external customers, who are they? They are your patients or your service providers, or whoever the people who come from outside to take your services. So the customers are two types. So empowerment of everyone in the organization. I told you this is not a single journey. You need to take everybody with you, right? So how to do this? Each person must feel that he or she is participating. So how to do this? You need to kind of get together with your team, and you have to have, let's say, small discussions, pocket meetings, and get the idea, share knowledge, something like that. You can define it. You can define these terms on your own, and you can you can empower your team members. Then what? Each takes responsibility for the success or failure of the organization. So everybody has their own part in this. So they have to take the responsibility for the consequences. Either it can be a successful journey or else a failure. Whatever it is, they have to take the responsibility. Then each takes an active part in developing new ways of doing business and securing new customers. So when it comes to patient care, you can't just be depend on the policies and procedures that you already have. Let's say there is a nursing officer who is having very innovative ideas when it comes to patient care. So he or she should be able to implement those. Implement, and then only they can develop the new methods, and they can uplift the hospital functions. So you have to give them the ability to do that. Then also, each trusts that his or her efforts are valued. Let's say, dear students, now if I'm doing something and nobody is appreciating me or nobody telling anything about my effort, let's say I'm going extra mile and doing something for the organization, nobody cares about it, and what happened? I feel bad about it, right? I feel not trusted enough, isn't it? I feel like, okay, they don't trust me on this, and that's why they are not commenting on this. All sort of thoughts are coming in. So that should not be there. Empowering means you have to give some sort of a power, or else what we call it responsibility for each and every member in your organization. So who are the people who are participating in this improvement process? Now we are talking about improvement processes. So who are the people? All staff members should be encouraged to participate. Why? I told you this total quality management, that's not something that you can do alone. You need each and every member in your team. So all staff members should be participating. Who else? All those involved with or affected by a goal or process should be participate. Let's say you have your ward and you're planning an improvement activities which involve finances. So you need your finance guy over there. So you need to invite him for your discussion. So his or her input also be very valid for your decision making process. And also, staff can participate on individual or else unit or organizational level. It doesn't matter. They can either participate individually or as a unit. As I mentioned, maybe they can, if you want your finance, either finance manager can come, or else the finance team, a few members of the finance team can come. Or else, if you have an outsourced company which you need to address, the separate company can participate for these discussions. So whoever the stakeholders are in your process improvement scenario, they have to come for this. Then participants should include point of service staff. Who are the point of service staff? Those who are working in the front line, who do the direct work involving the process. So usually what happens, these decision making processes are always done only with your senior people, isn't it? Senior management and chief matron, they only get involved. But this process, the process improvement scenario, or we call it the total quality management system, you can't do that. You need to have all your members into the picture. You need to bring them into into the picture. So how to improve the healthcare process? First of all, you need to know what do you mean by process. So it's very simple term. A process is a set of causes and conditions that repeatedly come together in a series of steps to transfer inputs into outputs. So we call it a system. So system has inputs, and then you have a process, and the inputs will be converted into outcomes, right? So all processes have inputs, steps and outputs. So it's very easy. Let's say for example, you're making a cup of tea, right? What are your inputs? You need to have hot water. First of all, you need to have a cup to make your tea, and you need to have hot water, and you need to have sugar, and you need to have tea leaf, right? If you're making a milk tea, you need to have milk powder also, right? So those are your inputs. Then what are the steps of making a cup of tea? So I don't need to tell you guys know already. So you need to mix everything, isn't it? You need to first boil your water and pour into your cup, and then you need to put some sugar, and you need to put the tea leaf and keep it for a while, and you use the tea strainer to filter it, and then use your milk powder and mix it appropriately. And what is your output? A proper cup of tea. So that's simply a defined process. So it's very easy. Improvements of the system. So what do you understand by a system, students? System is an interdependent group of items, or maybe people or processes with a common purpose. So this system can be either an item or set of people, or else some processes. It can be any of these things, right? And what are they working for? They have a common purpose, right? An outcome is a system. Outcome in a system can be improved by examining not only processes but also the relationships between processes. So outcome, you can improve these outcome in a system by examining not only processes but also the relationship between processes. So you need to know what are the processes you have, and what are the overcomings, what are the setbacks in these processes, and also how these processes are interrelating, and then you can comment on those, and you can improve your system in your outputs, in your outcomes, by adjusting these issues. Then correct gathering and interpretation of data is an essential component of the continuous improvement. Now we are talking about improving things, continuously improving things, right? So if you don't interpret your data, if you don't go through your data, and if you don't analyze them, what's the point of how you are going to see whether you are improving yourself or not? So in simple terms, you need to gather your data, and you need to correctly interpret them, you need to correctly analyze them, right? And this short cycle, that short has developed the concept that improvement in a cycle, right? It is a continuous big thing because it's a link to customer needs and judgment. So this is a short cycle is something that goes in a cycle, right? So it should be like that. If you see a cycle, it's never ends, right? Start from one point and you can go around and round and round. So it's linked between customer needs and just judgments. So how implications for client care? Now we are slowly moving on to patient care side. So quality improvement for patient care can be measured by overall value of care. So something that we do, like we are going to improve the patient care, and how we are going to measure it? By considering the overall value of that particular care, and value is determined by outcomes and cost. So simply like that, whatever you do, the outcome will predict on your value, right? So outcome can be clinical or as functional. Something like within brackets we have given, did the patient live, or related to patient satisfaction. Let's say for example, you are having a cardiac arrest in your unit. So what can be the outcome? There can be two outcomes, right? Either patient can survive, you can successfully resuscitate the patient, or else patient can die, right? So successful outcome would be, obviously you are saving the patient, isn't it? So it can be clinical or functional, and if your outcome is good, basically your effort is successful, or else it's a failed effort. And the cost, I was telling about outcome and cost can be direct or indirect. So whatever you are going to spend, that can be a direct cost that you are going to directly invest on, or else it come in a different way. It come in as a, let's say, a loss for the hospital, or additional burden for the hospital, something like that. Then what is our plan? What should be our goal? Increase quality outcome and reduce the cost, obviously, isn't it? So we need to maintain these two. While maintaining the quality, increasing the quality, you need to reduce the cost, then only you can achieve your goals. And there are so many methodologies in quality approaches. So one thing I know you have heard this PDCA cycle, plan, do, check, act cycle, and there is another methodology called focus methodology. So a method for sharing work with others. So this is a simple example. It takes the major steps in improvement methodology and visually online the progression of each step. It can be displayed on chart in a high traffic area of the organization to inform other staff of improvement efforts underway. So this is something we are doing commonly, probably in your units also. You guys must be having your notice boards, isn't it? So what you do usually, if you do something like, let's say you are doing a study in your department and you want to showcase it and tell the others that you are working on something, and your effort, you want to show it to the others. So what you do, you show your graphs and you show your improvements from numbers and stuff, so that even the people who are not related to your organization, they can see that you guys are doing something and improvement is on the way. Okay, you are trying to reduce your, let's say, your infection rates, and you are showing your hospital acquired infection rates in your notice board, and people can see it's gradually decreasing. That means you are putting some effort and it's working, and your numbers are going down. And especially problem identification is very important when it comes to this quality management activities. A clear identified mechanism by which frontline staff can suggest improvements, opportunities they see in their day-to-day work should be established. This can be different from hospital to hospital. There are hospitals who have this reporting system called incident reporting system. I think most of the private sector hospitals, they do practice this, and that's called no blame culture. So what people does is, whenever they walk here and there in the hospital, whenever they see something wrong or some mistake while they are walking, they report it. So they identify the problem and they have a way of reporting it, right? This will not be only the senior management, but your janitor can do it, right? So they will suggest improvement opportunities, right? Day-to-day life, they can do it. So let's say, for example, like simple examples, I know you guys know these kind of things. You have a switch box. Let's say you have a wall switch, have 5 buttons, right? It has 5 buttons which switch on different lights, right? So let's say now you go to this room and you want to only switch on the lights which are corresponding to your seat, or particular area, right? But you don't know which switch to switch on, because there is no numbering system, there is no identification system. So what you will do, you will try to put every switch, all the 5 switches, and identify what is the corresponding switch. In the same way, the worst part, let's say you are working in a setup like this. You have these 5 switches, and those 5 switches are responsible for 5 different light settings, and you are finished with your work and you are going to leave the office and you want to switch off your particular light bulb, and you don't know which switch to off. Then what happens? You will end up trying all the switches, and what will happen? It will be very inconvenient if one of these switches are linked to one of your senior manager or somebody, and he or she is having a meeting inside, and suddenly you switch off the light, right? So that's a problem, no? So what is the simple solution? You can put a numbering system, isn't it? So you must have seen these kind of activities in some hospitals or even in private sector. So they do number their switchboards, especially to identify which switch is corresponding to which light bulb. So something like that. So it's very easy. Then improvement strategies. The first improvement strategy would be benchmarking, measuring organization performance with that of the best performance. This is something, students, we are not doing. We, in our culture, what we do, we hide things. We don't want to show that our rates are low or our rates are good. to the others. So that's very wrong. In other countries, what they do, they usually publish their infection rates, their hand hygiene compliance rates, freely available. If you go and see in the internet, anybody can see that. Not to punish anybody or laugh at anybody, they want to show that what is their stand in this particular thing, for that others can benchmark. Let's say, for example, your hospital has the best hand hygiene compliance, so you can showcase it so that other hospitals also can visit your premises and they can also learn from you. Benchmarking is that, so they can look at you and they can improve themselves. And also regulatory requirements, not only benchmarking, regulatory requirements also vital, because measuring organizational performance against standards from regulatory organizations. So you would have heard these standards called Joint Commission, and we have ISO standards. So you probably, if you have worked in private sector, you have experience, I believe. They are coming for these audits, right? They come and what they do, they are checking our practices against the standard which is there, which has been given, right? So practices versus standard. So that's very simple. So if you want to maintain yourself and if you want to maintain your certifications or accreditations, you need to maintain your standards. That's it. And sentinel events. Sentinel events is event is unexpected occurrence involving in a death or serious physical or psychological harm to a patient and requiring an investigation and possible change to organizational process. So you must have experienced these kind of incidents in your organization. But what happened? Nobody reports or nobody take the responsibility to investigate on these aspects. So sentinel events should not happen in a hospital, and even though it happened in a hospital, you should be able to analyze it and see why it has happened. I'll give you an example. There was a private hospital, and one patient came to an OPD just to show his wounded leg, right? So this patient was waiting outside till doctor comes, and suddenly he wanted to use the washroom. So you can't accompany somebody to a male washroom, and so the patient went with his bystander and went alone to the washroom while bystander is waiting outside. And what happened? This patient was a diabetic wound patient, and suddenly he had a faintish attack and fell inside the washroom and knocked his head on the common. Then what happened? Nobody knew, and after a while the bystander was a little bit panicked that the patient didn't come out, and she informed the OPD people, and they came and they found patient is lying on the floor, and they immediately took the patient into the emergency room and found what is unresponsive, and they immediately took him for the resuscitation, and they did some imagings also and found patient was having a severe head injury, and after so much of effort, patient had passed away because of his other comorbidities. So that's a sentinel event because it has happened inside the hospital, and the patient ultimately died. So what are the improvements things that the hospital would have done? They would have had the communication method from the outside to inside, isn't it? Or else they should have an access to a person who is having a walking difficulty to accompany a bystander, or a common washroom for them to have a bystander inside. So something like that. So these kind of events show you what are the lapses in your processes, so that the second incident will not happen. You can prevent it. And there is this balance scorecard. I don't know whether you have heard about it. In order to assure value in care, measurements of progress, it has to be balanced. So it should be, it should not be biased. So care, measurement, progress, it should be balanced, and it should be equal to each and every patient. So there is another term called clinical value compass, and these are very important. Patient satisfaction data also something that you should collect in a hospital setup. We usually don't do that. Why we need it? How we do it? Accumulated through questionnaires, focus groups, and post-care interviews. So simply these are the methods that you can collect patient satisfaction data. And why this is helpful? It's helpful because you can compare it with your competitor hospitals or else your other subordinate hospitals, and to see whether your patients are satisfied than the other hospitals or vice versa. And there is another term called time series data, which allows you to it allows the quality improvement team to see the change in quality over time. So you gather data time to time, a series of time. So we can see within that time what are the things that you need to improve. And time series chart used to look for trends, shifts and unusual data. So when you collect data for a long time, what happened? You see trends, right? You see increments, you see decrements in process, you see suddenly customers are dissatisfied on something. So you can investigate on it and you can address that issue. So how you can plot this? These are the simple charts: Pareto charts, histogram, flow diagram, fishbone charts, pie charts. So there are so many ways for you all to graph this. So principles in action in organization. What is the organizational structure? It will be responsible on accountability, and it will be maximize the communication and also communicate and focus priority at all levels. So we know this process mean now. What is evidence? Evidence-based plans for care, such as clinical pathways, standardized protocols, and clinical guidelines, and we need benchmarking tools. Outcomes are measurements of the patient response to structure and process. Outcome measure actual clinical progress, can be short term or long term. Outcome data can be helpful in identifying opportunities for improvement. So these are the things, students, which are coming under this particular topic. So you can further read using your textbook, and if you have any queries, kindly contact us. Thank you so much.